Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for being here and giving me a little bit of your time and energy. I hope to be really respectful with it. I may be disrespectful in some of the things that I say, not intending to be disrespectful, but the fact is, in a room this size, I'll probably say something that might rub you the wrong way and trigger you and you trigger me. That's just what we do when we get together, but we're all welcome in this place. Are there any head types in here? Like, you live in your head? Just want to know who's in the room. Okay, a few. How about the heart types? You feels, folks. And the body types? Shoot from, okay, just only three body types. So I'm a body type. I like anger. That makes sense to me. I live there. I'm learning this year to kind of get into the feels, because the way that I was developed in my life, I've been invested in certain ways, and the ways that people invested in me caused me to really live from here and live from here. And so I didn't know that you could actually integrate head, heart, and body. And so I'm trying to integrate those three aspects of myself and live a fuller or holistic life. That's kind of the thing that I'm on right now. That's kind of my quest. And so I like to know who's in the room so that I know when I see certain kinds of reactions, it's like, oh, I need to maybe use a different example so that we track together. So I want to acknowledge those who have made this possible. So thank you for inviting me. I want to acknowledge the fact that you're welcome in this place, whether you're feeling like yourself today. The truth of the matter is, we've already had interactions today with other human beings who either brought joy to our lives or brokenness to our lives or contempt, all kinds of things. And that's just the truth, that we're showing up in all kinds of ways. So just acknowledge that. Just acknowledge the person who and the people who have pissed you off and the people who have loved you into this space today. They're here with you. Acknowledge the fact that your ancestors brought you here. We need to acknowledge the fact that there were people here on this earth, on this property before this building was here, and we're indebted to them. They stewarded the land. The Native Americans, the indigenous people were here. So we have to acknowledge all that is this moment that we're in, I think, in order to pull out the greatest things in, not only in us, the greatest creativity and all that, what I would say that God has given us. So just wanted to acknowledge that. I also want to just kind of invite us into this space. So whenever I gather with folks, like say at my church or when we're doing work at the Hive, mindfulness, we do this invitation. It's called the Invitation to Brave Space. So if you would indulge me, could we look at the words and say it together? Is that all right? So I'll go kind of slow, because I know sometimes when we do this, we're just like trying to quickly go through it. But I want the words to kind of find you in your head, your heart, or your body. Just kind of pay attention to how the words hit you as we read this. But this is your invitation. This is our invitation for this moment that we're going to have as we co-create this morning. Together, we will create brave space, because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars, and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together. And we will work on it side by side. Just kind of take a moment and turn to your neighbors and maybe name one or two words that just stand out to you and how those words are hitting you this morning as you're showing up in yourself, okay? Can you do that? Take a little time to get to know your neighbor. All right? Yeah. Anything that you want to report back? Just a couple people want to say something that they heard that just kind of struck them?
It sounds like if you're in front of the laptop, it doesn't do that.
If you're in front, okay. Check. Or just turn it off. Okay. That's fine. Oh, okay. Yeah. Anyone? Okay. Yes.
I know one thing I mentioned in terms of talking to was the acceptance of conflict. When I look at that acceptance of that, we're not going to agree. Stuff's going to happen.
And you.
That's the word that came out to me was the word the acceptance of conflict.
Accepting conflict. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah. Anyone else? More? Yes.
Yeah, it made me think of the concept of holding space. How we're holding space for each other and co-creating.
Okay. Holding space and co-creating. All right. Anyone else? One more? Yes.
The whole table was a couple people imagined a safe space versus brave space. So we're just trying to not hit us in different ways, and we're intrigued by the thoughts of that and what's behind that.
Safe versus brave. Yeah. I love that poem. For me, it's been really impactful, partly because of this creating safe spaces and brave spaces. It seems like, in my experience anyway, when we want to create a safe space, a lot of times we can't accept conflict. And we're trying to say things and do things in such a way that we can't really show up. And so what we end up doing, again, in my experience, we end up presenting our egoistic side, not our real side. And I'm more interested in you really showing up, like your real true self. You're just got out of bed and I'm not quite ready yet self. I'm really upset self. I'm depressed self, not my ego self, my professional self, my self that knows how to perform in order to get the reactions that I need to get, in order to get the stuff done that I need to get done, kind of thing. And so brave space for me is, it really is becoming a core value that I'm trying to create brave spaces for people to actually show up. That's kind of what I want to do. And I think that for me, the investment in creating brave spaces will have benefits psychologically, emotionally, relationally, financially, spiritually. It will have benefits in any and all aspects of your life if we could create brave spaces for folks to show up. This is a new one? Check. Yes. Check. There it is. Sorry. Sorry. So Maya Angelou's quote, that true freedom, and I think it's freedom from my ego, happened when I realized that I belong no place, that I belong to every place, that I belong no place at all. She said, if you take this journey of belonging, you'll find that the price is high, but the reward is great. For the longest time, for me, I come from those two people on the left. That's Don and Annie. You can barely see the picture, but they came from Mississippi and Alabama. And the picture on the top right is those are. All right. So we'll do this. I was feeling like jazz this morning anyway, so we're going to improv. We'll just go with it, right? That's what I woke up feeling like. Yeah, I mean, this place is like improv to me. This is, well, let's do it. So my parents moved from Alabama and Mississippi and moved to a little town called Lima. And the people on the right are some of the people, again, my ancestors, people who I bring into the room who helped shape me and they helped ground me. They moved out of the city of Lima to a smaller town, and I'll tell you a little bit about that town in just a bit, because they wanted their kids to have a better life. They wanted to kind of get us away from the city because they believed that we needed some things that were different. And so the place where they found land happened to be out in the country, out in a rural area. We'll talk about that. Their country. My grandfather on the bottom left, again, you can't see him, but he was an old bootlegger in Alabama. And yeah, and he exposed my mom, his business exposed my mom to all types of people in the South. White people would come by and get his liquor. And their house was like this collective because of the product that he had. It's very interesting to me, though, even though I lead a church, that it sounded like my mom had more community and diversity in the South because of bootlegging rather than the church. But that says a lot to me anyway. That's why I have the pub cheers mug today. I appreciate that. Thank you. So I grew up in Roundhead. They moved me out of the city to Roundhead. Today it has a total of 720 people. We were the only black family in Roundhead. So you want to talk about belonging? I didn't belong there, and they let me know I didn't belong there, even though we tried to work it out. I never really felt grounded there. That little guy on the right looks like old cow we had. His name was Cowboy. We ate Cowboy because he got out of the fence and got hit, and so they had to slaughter, and we ate. You get it? And I love Cowboy. That's why I like to have Cowboy in my pictures. Roundhead, the county that I grew up in, the Underground Railroad ran through there. Really interesting place. The country is where I developed an imagination. The wide space is where I just began to dream. But the dreaming needed a little grounding. So I was a dreamer. I was always a dreamer. I had great fantasies of not being in Roundhead. I imagined I was someone other than what they said I was. And I was really ashamed. I had a lot of shame growing up of being from that place and being this person. And so I was searching for that belonging that Maya talks about. When I graduated high school, I moved to Lima, and that has about 40,000 people. I moved back there. There was an actual PBS documentary called Lost in Middle America, and that's what Lima is. A lot of good people, but that's, again, I moved from Roundhead to Lima, and Lima was considered the big city for us. In school, when I was in Roundhead, the school that I went to, we were so poor, like we were so bad. We only won 3 football games ever in the history of our football program. And then I moved from there to Lost in Middle America. I'm like, I'm just losing all the way around. So, but I decided, yeah, the Glee is supposed to be from Lima, that high school. Yeah, the Lima Losers. Yeah, that's yeah. So take that identity. So in 2008, so I'm in Lima, I'm living and I'm trying to be in community. In 2008, we had a shooting. This Tarika Wilson, 26-year-old woman, was shot by a white officer who kicked in that door over there and shot her while she was holding her 1-year-old child. And I remember that moment in 2008, how everything in my world was flipped upside down because up until that point, I was just trying to do good in the community. I was trying to lead community organizing. I was trying to lead a church. I was trying to do what I thought was right to make the world a better place. And then when she died, I felt this, like, I felt like I knew her and I didn't know her. I felt like I was supposed to be more involved in the city, and I wasn't really involved because I was doing my own little thing, my own little life. I was totally disconnected. I was still dreaming big, but I wasn't connected in community. I wasn't grounded. Part of that is just because I was always trying to stay outside of my body because of the way that I was raised. I didn't want to feel it. I didn't want to feel what it felt like to be in this body. I didn't want to feel what it felt like to think these thoughts and think of what other people were saying about me. I didn't like the shame, and so my ego built a nice little life for myself, totally disconnected from real community. Totally disconnected from real community. And so I got involved in the community during this time, and that sign over there says you might not accept us, you might never believe that we are all created equal, but until you learn of these things, you will respect us. 2008, well before there was ever a Black Lives Matter, I remember that feeling of like, what do our lives matter? Like, do our lives matter? I remember thinking that. And so then when I fast forward to 2015 here in Cincinnati, that just kind of came full circle for me. So 2008, I'm getting involved in the community. I'm going to be connected. The shooting happens. We believe that the officer is going to be punished. Like, we were told that it was a bad shoot, and that did not happen. And so I remember in that moment feeling like, I don't know how to make sense of this. I don't know how to, like, we as a community couldn't even offer him forgiveness. The court system just took it away from us, and it was like, I don't know what to do. And I realized at that time, I did not have the inner strength to do justice work. I didn't have the inner strength to actually do the transformative work that I wanted to do. It was all from my head and my gut, right? When I was telling that. So this made me really, really angry. And out of that anger, I gave up on the church. Out of that anger, I gave up on law enforcement. Out of that anger, I gave up on most of our institutions and systems and said, you know what? F it all. I'm just going to go do me. I want to stay totally disconnected from community, real community. Now, my ego can show up. I can give you that, but I'm not going to give you my heart. I'm not going to really give you my creativity. I'm not going to really give you my imagination. My body's in the room, but I'm not in the room. I'm somewhere else. And so in 2008, I decided to just kind of close in and do good work until I moved to Cincinnati. And in 2015, here in Cincinnati, another injustice that pulled me right back into the same moment in 2008. I remember when I saw it on the news, I'm like, oh my goodness, all these feelings, I don't know what to do with this, but it feels like 2008 again. And so I started to get involved. And that has led me to a whole new world of community organizing and justice work and wanting to live this integrated life where I want to do justice, but I also have to love mercy, and I also have to walk humbly with God. And the walking humbly with God for me was the inner work that I didn't do before. I'd find an issue and I'd blow it up. I'd protest, I'd fight, but it was all coming from a disconnected place. And so for me, the investment in Brave Space is saying, is it possible for us to create spaces and places for folks to let things come in and out, hear the words, see the images, and not run from it, not push it away, not try to justify it, but allow it to actually affect us, allow it to actually hit us, and see what that investment does in us. And so out of that space, out of that place, out of that inner space, we can begin to do some external work. This is what it looks like for me. This is from Kyodo Williams, Reverend Williams. Without interchange, there can be no outer change, and without collective change, no change matters. No change matters. I want to check in with you.
I don't think that no change matters. I mean, if I change myself, even though society doesn't change, is my change. I don't feel like my change is irrelevant.
So just your personal? Okay.
It's nice that society changes also, but society changes a lot more slowly than individuals, so.
That's true. That's true. We'll let that sit out there in the room. Anyone else? Yes.
When I see the word collective, what actually comes to my mind is not necessarily everyone. It's a small collective.
Okay.
That if it starts there, then it can grow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, which collective can I have an impact on that's realistic for me?
Mm-hmm.
And who within that group may be accessing other collectives?
Mm-hmm.
For me, that feels more doable.
Yeah.
Because when I see fun, I'm like, oh crap, I can't even get near that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
If you were to reword it, with inner change, there is outer change, collective change, and all change matters.
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
Along with it, I think the way it progresses, it shows the importance of interchange. And that is something that we can all work on.
The excuse me. The interchange for me is okay. I'm going to throw out some of my biases, so you'll hear this, right? So I think that the reason why collective change is important for me, I think that all of us have experienced injustice. I think that that's just the starting point. We may not even call it that. We've all experienced trauma. We've all experienced pain. We've all experienced suffering. We all know this. And the reason why collective change is important, because everyone in the room has been injured. Everyone in the room has experienced pain and suffering. And it's what we all have in common. I don't need to walk in your shoes to know that when you are experiencing pain, I should have enough compassion to be able to be with you, if nothing else, while you're in your pain. But without the inner work, when I see your pain, my response would have been to run from it, to avoid it. Like, that's just too much, it's too overwhelming. So the inner work is so that I can be stable enough or strong enough to hold space for people who can't hold space and who can't even hold it together. And so the first act of injustice and trauma and pain and suffering, I believe, was the moment you were born. And the people you were born to, in the community you were born in, and the people who reared you, because you didn't choose any of it. And injustice to me is the thing that you deserve. You didn't deserve your family. They didn't choose you, you didn't choose them. It was kind of like the luck of the draw. That's not a bad thing. It's just the way it is. If you would have chosen your family, you probably, maybe, would have chosen a different family. Some of us in the room would have. So whether you were born in privilege and wealth, or in the middle class, or in poverty, it's all unjust because you didn't choose it. We believe that the world we live in today is right because of where we were raised, the people who raised us. But Richard Rohr says this, that if you don't transform pain or trauma, you're just going to transmit it. And so the people who raised me, they're loving and great parents. They raised me in such a way that they were transmitting their trauma in me because they still had untransformed pain in them. That's just what we're doing. We're not trying to. We're not intending to pass on trauma, but that's what we do. So that if we don't do the inner work, these lovely children that we have and grandchildren that we have, all the hangups and hiccups that we never actually deal with and come to grips with, we're just passing it on to the next generation and the next generation. When it comes to race, none of us accepted it. None of us asked to live in a racialized society. None of us asked to live in a patriarchal society. It's just what we've inherited. And because we have not had the inner transformation, it's difficult for us to even have racial justice talks that actually go somewhere because we haven't transformed that pain and that trauma. And you can pick any of the intersections, ageism, gender, sexuality, whatever we want to, it's all the same. We've experienced this trauma and pain, and I think that's what we have in common. And so the collective to me is the thing, for the reason why Brave States matters is because if the collective is healed, if the collective can love, then I believe then we can actually give people what they actually deserve. Out of love and mercy, we can give people the justice that they deserve. And the kind of justice that we typically mete out now is like, I meet you at this particular point in your life, you've done something or didn't do something, and now I'm going to judge you as this one act that you may have done. And our way of doing justice is to punish that rather than restore that. And so what does it look like to say, well, if I knew your life, if I understand your pain and your points of pain, I probably would have done the same thing. If we could just slow it down a little bit and try that. That's just that's like my bias, like that's my hope, is that we do create spaces where people can actually heal and love and do amazing creative things in the world. I think you're the most important investment in your life. I think loving yourself is the most important thing that you can do. And being able to work through the pain and trauma of your own actual existence. I ran from my own trauma. Like I wouldn't even tell people I was from Roundhead. I would not even say it. Like it wasn't even part of my story. As if I could divorce myself from my actual shaping and you can't. I have friends who have been hurt by the church, and they want to act like that didn't shape them, like it's still in you. And your ego isn't going to go anywhere. Your ego, my buddy said yesterday, I'm trying to beat this thing down. I'm like, your ego's just getting stronger because your ego was developed at a time to save you, to help you. You got to sit down with your ego and just say, little guy, thank you. You were really helpful, but I'm going to run it now. Let the adult run it. So my ego and I, we have drinks. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I love everything you just said. I guess my mom passed very recently, so mortality has been on my mind a lot. So I guess one thing that struck me when I read that was collective change is the part of it that actually has the potential to endure past our own lifetime.
Yep. That's exactly right. Anyone else? Was there a hand over here? Yes?
It seems almost like collective change leads, or at least can open a doorway to connection, to find something that how you can relate or connect to somebody, even if you think they're wildly different than you. And I think that's what I think when I think of collective change.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Any other thoughts? You come on. Pushback, challenges, whatever. It's just a dialogue. Yes.
I'll be brave.
You're brave, right? It's brave space. You can show up. You can dissent.
This resonates with me a lot, and what you just said also resonates with me a lot. A very kind of, I guess a simple example is in my previous job roles, I've always been the only person like myself. And either that's been shut down or it's celebrated out of obligation. So I'm included in pictures because look how diverse we are. And in my current role, I happen to have started at a time where things were still being evolved, things were still being established, and I was able to be a part of that establishment. And because of that, I bring myself, I bring my strength to it, and whatever resonated with my strength came to us. And now we are a collective that is supportive of each other, not necessarily the same, but embracing of each other and accepting of each other. And during a recent kind of organizational transition period, that collective is the most powerful thing for me right now. It's helped, just kept me sane through that transition, and it truly felt like it helped me realize that each one of us, including myself, mattered with that collective in a way that previous job roles did not, because I would bring my voice, but being the only person in the room, regardless of whether I get allies through it, it still felt like it did not matter, because it would never go as far as it needed to be, because I didn't have the collective. So. All of that is good.
Thank you for being brave and sharing that in the room. I relate to a lot of that's.
I think I'm coming into a different relationship with the idea of what interchange is. In the last year, I've seen this quote pop up quite a few times, and Troy at the Hive kind of talks about like rearranging the furniture, and it feels like, okay, if I can just like do a thing that puts the pieces in place, but recently it's been more about being with myself in a deeper way, and like listening to all the voices that have been pushed deep down and letting them kind of like having a relationship with all those pieces of myself that I've ignored or I've run away from or I've shut down. And then that being with myself is turning into me trusting myself more, which is translating into things flowing more easily out in the world with what I'm trying to create and do and change. And I'm noticing that the more deeply I trust myself, the greater capacity I have to hold brave space for more people or in that brave space, deeper things
Mm.
happen.
Yeah.
So that kind of depth, rather
Yes.
than like doing something to myself, with the interchange pieces coming into a different understanding.
Yeah, that's really good. That trusting yourself, your full self, like all of you. And again, you know from your own stories, like the story you tell yourself, you know how you critique yourself or whatever it is, whatever you do, we all do it. It's like, there are certain aspects of yourself that you were told they weren't allowed to be in the room. And so that's the story you tell yourself. And then you judge it, or you shame base it, or your fear or anxiety, or however you deal with it. And that's just not your true self. And to trust all of you, whoo, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Love that. Yeah, it's not a lot of doing, it's more accepting, being aware of, paying more attention to yourself, paying attention to how you're responding to like when you're in your meetings, like rather than projecting on someone else and like, well, you're doing this. It's more about like, why am I feeling this way or thinking this way, or why? Asking those questions. It's been a game changer for me. Like, I wish I would have known that back in Roundhead. Like, yeah, it's a great journey. Yeah.
I say, that also helps in conflicts, when you can say and approach it and say, and speak a feeling. This makes me feel this. And that does take, trusting yourself, being able to read your emotions. Because if you pull feeling into this, another person can look at it and say, oh, wow, I had a bigger impact than I thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Conflict resolution.
Yeah. I mean, you all are familiar with the intersectionality, right? That whole notion that we have all these different competing identities and stuff. And so I was like, man, I was intersectional before I even knew what it was in Roundhead, really, right? So there was a moment when I realized that because I grew up in the country and I had a lot of those values and those ways. When I would go to the city, I wasn't accepted. So in the city, I acted or sounded too white to be black. And when I was back in Roundhead, I was too black to be white. And so it's like, what do you do with those tensions? How do you, I couldn't resolve them. And I think that what we're saying here is all those different identities you have. So someone would see me, but a lot of my values, I project blackness, right? Like I look like a black person. You would say, yeah, he looks like a black man, right? With dreads. That's what I'm projecting, or that's what you're projecting on me. But how do I actually identify? You don't know. You wouldn't have known that I was raised in Roundhead. Would anyone have guessed that I was raised in Roundhead at 720 people? Right? And so we're trying to figure out how do I, someone looks at me and they think these things about me, but how I identify is totally different. Like, how do I manage that? How do I resolve that? How do I create brave space within myself to trust all of my different competing identities? How do I hold tension and paradox? Like, we're not going to whitewash our society. We're not going to create this perfect place. We've got to learn how to deal with the things that are different and celebrate them. And for me, the cultural phenomenon that has done that better than anything in my experience and in my life has been hip hop culture. It's the first expression that says you can bring dance and art and music and all types of music, and you can bring a certain kind of attitude and a certain kind of style, and you bring it all together, and it's all valuable. We just want you to bring the best of it. Just bring your true, keep it real. Because if you show up in hip hop culture and it's not real, then that's when you get booed. And I'm not saying you should be booed or kicked out, but that's kind of the standards. Just bring your real self, bring your skill. So I think we can do this. I think we can hold all of these competing identities, but it takes an imagination, which I'll go back to Roundhead. So in Roundhead is where I began to dream. That's where I could fantasize. That's where I could imagine all kinds of things, and I could see how these white people and black people could actually hang out and do life together. And I could see how the country could complement the kids in the city, and the city can complement the kids in the country. And I could see all of that. It's like, where's your imagination when it comes to who you can be and who you are and what we can be together? What we can be together. We get to create the next 400 or 500 years. We don't just have to be beholden to the forefathers and foremothers who were creative and imaginative in their time. We get to do this for generations. we get to do this, and that's exciting to me. And so, if we can, we're here? That's it? We got it? Okay, all right. You guys are great. You guys are great. You guys really are. I like this. Like, this just feels right. I feel like I belong here. I'm just saying that. It just feels nice. I want to do a practice. Is that all right? Can we do a breathing practice together? Some of you are like, no, hell no. Get this, all this hippie shit. No, it's not. Yeah. Is that okay? Can we do that together? And if you don't want to, you don't have to participate in it. It's just an invitation. But we'll do a little kind of body scan, just to get you in touch with your own beautiful body, right? Like, yeah, and just pay attention to it. Just pay attention to it. So if you can, kind of get sturdy, put your feet on the ground if you would, and feel the ground under your feet. And pay attention to that, like the ground under your feet. The people who came before us who stewarded the land, and the folks who built this and made it stable, we're stable. No matter what our lives are telling us, we're held right now. Feel that ground. You may need to take some deep breaths. I say breathe in the flowers and blow out the candle. Notice the sound, that humming there. We're in this room together. Now I want you to bring your attention just like maybe an inch above your head. Kind of focus right there. Now start to bring that attention down into your brain. Just that beautiful brain of yours. Has so much capacity and possibility. That brain that got you into the room. Just maybe draw your attention to your eyes. Just think about what those eyes have seen. Maybe you're thinking about times when your eyes were better. Maybe now not so much. Keep going down to like your throat. You may even want to just swallow so you can feel that. All the things that you have taken in, you've eaten. This is your body. Down your neck, down to your shoulders. Maybe there's tension there. You've been carrying a lot for a lot of people. Maybe you just need to release that, like, shake that off today. Those strong shoulders. Keep going down to your heart, all the life that has been pumped through that heart. Strong. Keep going down, maybe to your lungs and the breathing, the breath. Maybe you're sensing some pain in your body. Just notice it. Just acknowledge it. It's there. Accept it and just let it go. Don't judge it. It's just there. Just keep going on down, past your stomach, down your legs, and what those legs have held, how they've carried you. Maybe there's an injury that you're noticing that you've had. Maybe you're worried about something in those legs, but just notice it. It's there. Those are your legs. This is your body. On down to your ankles and finally those feet that are firmly planted on the ground. You are here. We are here. This is us. So whenever you're ready, you can kind of just come to the room, come back, take your time. Maybe look around and just see who catches your eye, to know that their body is here too, that we're co-laborers together, we're co-creating together, we belong together, we're here. Thank you.